Hi, this is section 7.6, the inverse of a matrix. So the identity matrix is this matrix. For a 2 by 2 and for a 3 by 3 it would look like that. So the ones are diagonals, zeros everywhere else. So the definition of the inverse of a matrix is as such. If you multiply two matrices, A times B, you should get the identity matrix. And also, if you multiply it in the other direction, B times A, you should also get the identity matrix. So B is called the inverse of A, and this is a notation for inverse. So this is the way you would find an inverse. It's this matrix A. So what we need to do is we need to extend this matrix, and we would write the identity on the right side. There's your identity, a 2 by 2. Now our goal is to make this the identity, and whatever is left over on the right side, that becomes your inverse matrix. So the way to make this the identity, we have to start with 1 and then 0. So let's start with the 1. So that means we're going to have to multiply 1/3 times row 1, and that's going to equal row 1. So if you do that, you should get 1 2/3, 1/3, and 0. All right, now we need to make this a 0, so that means we're going to multiply row 1 by -4, add that to row 2, and that will equal row 2. So there's our 0. So on the side, let's do some side work. So we need to multiply 2/3 by -4, which is -8/3, and then we need to add 5 to that. So that would be 7/3. So that becomes 7/3. All right, same thing for the next one. So 1/3 times -4 is -4/3. Add 0 to that, you get -4/3. And then if you multiply -4 times 0, that's 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. All right, we're almost there. Now we have to make this a 1. So we do that by multiplying by the reciprocal. So 3/7 times row 2 equals row 2. So that will be a 1 now. If you multiply this by 3/7, you're going to get, the 3's are going to cancel. You're going to get -4/7. Oops, -4/7. And last one, if you multiply that by 3/7, you will get 3/7. All right, the final step is to make this a 0, and the way we do that is we multiply row 2 by -2/3 and add to row 1, and that should equal your new row 1. So let's do that now. So if you do that, you should get 3/7 times 1 is 3/7 plus 2/3. It's going to be 21 times 3 times 7. Should get 9 plus 14. 9 plus 14 is 23/21. Okay, so that would be, all right, so what did I just do? I just lost my spot. -2/3 plus, okay, so I forgot to make this a 0. This should be a 0 now. Now I did this one. I multiplied -2/3. What did I just do? I don't understand what I just did. Sorry, let's backtrack here. All right, so this one becomes a 0. Now we have to multiply this one by -2/3. So that would become +8/21. And then you add 1/3 to that. So I multiplied -2/3 times -4/7. That's +8/21. And then you add 1/3 to that. So times 7 times 7, that's 15/21. Which simplifies to 5/7. So this becomes 5/7. And then the final one is 3/7 times -2/3. That would be 3's cancel. You get -2/7 plus 0 is -2/7. All right, so that is our inverse matrix right there, A inverse. So what you can also do when they're all fractions with the same denominator, I would recommend factoring out the fraction. So if we factor out the 1/7, our answer will look a little nicer. So 1/7 on the outside, you'd have 5, -2, -4, +3. So I just took out the 1/7 from each of these entries, and that's where I'm left with just the integers. All right, so it does get a little harder when you're working with the 3x3, more steps. So let's try this. All right, so I'm going to rewrite this. Oops. All right, 1, 2, 3, -2, 1, 0, 3, -1, 1. And of course, we have to write the identity matrix over here. Okay, it keeps doing that. Let's just not try that anymore. Okay, here we go. So first step is to make this 1, 0, 0. So let's multiply row 1 times 2 and add that to row 2, and that will equal row 2. So this becomes a 0. This will become a 4 plus 1 is 5. This will become a 6 plus 0 is 6. This will become 2 plus 0 is 2. This will remain unchanged, 1. And this will remain unchanged, 0. All right, next step is to multiply this by -3 and add it to this one. So that's going to be -3 row 1 plus row 3 equals row 3. There's our 0 that we needed. All right, now we're going to get -6 plus 1 is -7. Now we have -9 plus 1 is -8. All right, the next one's going to be -3 plus 0 is -3. And then 0, that means this remains unchanged. And this one is also going to remain unchanged. All right, next step is to make this a 1. So it's going to start getting messy because of the fraction. So let's multiply 1/5 times row 2. That equals row 2. So this becomes a 1, 6 over 5, 2 over 5, 1 over 5, and 0. All right, next step is to make this a 0. So let's multiply row 2 by 7 and add that to row 3. Okay, so that's going to be 0. All right, we're going to need our side work over here. Side work. Okay, so now we're going to multiply row 2 by 7. So if you multiply this by 7, you get 42/5 minus 8 over 1. So that's times 5 times 5. That's going to be 40, so it's going to be 2/5. All right, next one is to multiply 2/5 times 7 is 14/5 minus 3. That's going to be -1/5. And then the next one's going to be 7 over 5 plus 0 is 7 over 5. And then the last one remains unchanged because 0 plus 1 is 1. All right, our next step is to make this a 0. So now we have to multiply row 2 by -2 and add that to row 1. And that becomes a new row 1. So this becomes 0. All right, the next one will be 6/5. That's going to be scratch work over here now. So -2 times 6/5 is -12/5 plus 3 is going to be 3/5. All right, next one's going to be -2 times 2/5 is -4/5 plus 1. Well, that's the same thing as 5 over 5. That's going to be 1/5. All right, the next one's going to be -2/5 negative 2/5 plus 0 is negative 2/5. And then the last one is going to remain unchanged because 0 plus 0 is 0. All right. Next step is to make this a 1. So let me just change this to red. So change this, make this a 1. We have to multiply by the reciprocal, so it's going to be 5 over 2 times row 3 equals row 3. So that would become 1, 1. This one would become negative 1/2. This one would become 7 over 2. And the last one is going to be 5 over 2. All right, we're almost there. We got 2 more steps. We got to make this a 0 and then that a 0. So let's clear up some space. I'm going to make some more space so that we can do more scratch work or show more scratch work. All right, so the next step is to multiply row 3 by negative 6 over 5 and add that to row 2, and that's my new row 2. Okay, so let's do that. That's going to be 0. Okay, the next one's going to be, let's see, negative times a negative is a positive. That's going to be 6 over 10, which is 3/5. 3/5 plus 2/5 equals 5/5, which is 1. So this becomes a 1. Okay, the next one's going to be 6/5 times 7 over 2. That's going to be negative, let's see, 21/5. Let me just double check. Yeah, that's 3 times 7. Yeah, plus 1/5. That's going to be negative 20/5, which is negative 4. All right, the next one's going to be negative 6/5 times 5 over 2. That's going to be negative 3 plus 0 is negative 3. Let me just double check. Yep, is negative 3. That is right. Okay, very good. All right, our final step is to multiply row 3 by negative 3/5. Add that to row 1, and that's your new row 1. All right, so this is going to be 0. We're almost there. Okay, the next one's going to be, let's see, scratch work. I'm going to make some more space again. Okay, so let's see, negative 1/2 times 3/5. That's going to be positive 3/10 plus 1/5. That's going to be 5/10, which is 1/2. All right, so that is 1/2. Let me just double check that. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so it's going to be 1/2. All right, the next one's going to be negative 3/5 times 7 over 2. That's going to be negative 21/10 minus 2/5, negative 23, oh no, times 2, that's negative 4. That's going to be negative 25 over 10, which is negative 5/2. Negative 5/2. Okay, last one. Okay, 5's cancel, that's negative 3. Negative 3 plus 0 is negative 3. All right, so that was, oh, I think I did the wrong one. That should have been negative 3/2. Yeah, sorry, that was wrong. All right, so that should have been, let me double check that. That's 5, that's going to be negative 3/2. Negative 3/2 plus 0 is negative 3/2. Yeah, so that was the right, this was the right answer. So that is our inverse matrix. If you call that A, then this is A inverse. All right, so that's quite a lot of steps. Let's move on. Okay, so now we have to solve the system of equations. All right, so that's how we're going to do it using inverses. So the A matrix is just a coefficient matrix, so it's -1, 3, 1, 2, 5, 0, 3, 1, -2. Our X matrix is just the variables, X, Y, Z. And our B matrix is the constants on the right side, 1, 3, -2. So you have A times X equals B. That's A times X on the left, and this is B on the right. So the way you solve for X is you multiply both sides by A inverse. And then this becomes the identity. And then the identity times X is just X. So this is what we're trying to solve here. We're trying to find the inverse matrix, multiply that by B, and that's your answer. So instead of doing that all over again, that process, I'm going to tell you what the inverse of this matrix is using my calculator. So give me a second while I type it in. Okay, so I got the inverse matrix using the calculator, and I will show you how to do that as well. So the inverse matrix is going to be, I'm going to factor out the 1/9 because they all have the same denominator of 1/9. So it's going to be -10, 7, -5, 4, -1, 2, -13, 10, -11. All right, so that's the inverse. So if we multiply that by B, that is going to be our answer. So let's multiply that by B. So I'm just going to put B over here. 1, 3, -2. All right, so the way you would multiply these two is you're going to do the row times the column. So that's going to be -10, 21, +10. So you got that times that. That's going to be -10, -10 plus 21 plus 10. So it's just going to be 21. And of course you have the 1/9 out here still. So the 1/9 is still there. All right, now let's do the next one. So it's going to be 4 minus 3 minus 4. 4 minus 3 minus 4 is -3. All right, last one is going to be -13 plus 30 plus 22. So let's do that. Negative minus. All right, so what was it? It is -13 plus 30 plus 22 is 39. All right, let me just double check the middle one again. Yep, that looks right to me. All right, so this is going to be our final answer. The final answer is going to be 21 over 9, -1/3, and 39 over 9. So you can write that as an ordered pair. All right, that should do it. And that concludes this section.